You are invited to participate in our transportation planning process regardless of your race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender, ancestry, ethnicity, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, veteran status, or background. Read the full notice of your rights and protections at www.boston.org/MPO_NON_TISCRIMINATION. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Zoom products are compliant with exceptions with the following standards: Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 Level AA standards and revised Section 508 standards. If you require any additional accommodations in order to participate fully in this meeting, or if you have any technical difficulties, please contact Priyanka Chapekar, MPO staff at pchapekar@ctps.org or 857-702-3661 or via the chat box. All participants will join the meeting with muted microphones. Please rename yourself to include your first name, last name, and affiliation. After roll call, board members may mute and unmute themselves. Always remain muted unless actively speaking. To participate in the discussion, please select the raise hand function. Find this by clicking either on the participants button at the bottom of the screen, and a window will pop up with a raise hand button at the bottom, or the reactions button in the toolbar. The chair will then call on participants. Please raise your hand via Zoom if you would like to use an AI note taker during this meeting. If you're on the phone, you can use *9 to raise your hand. Please call the roll.
MassDOT Seat 1.
This is David Muller. I represent Secretary Monica Tibbetts-Nutt here.
Good morning. MassDOT Seat 2.
John Bouchard, representing Highway Administrator Jonathan Gulliver, present.
Hello, John. MassDOT Highway Division.
Don Romano, MassDOT Highway Division here.
Hello, John. MBTA.
Good morning. Sandy Johnson, representing General Manager Phil Lang and the MBTA.
Good morning. Regional Transportation Authorities, Metro West Transit Authority.
Good morning. This is Tyler Terrassi, representing Administrator Jim Nee for the Metro West Regional Transit Authority. Present.
Tyler. Massport.
Hello, good morning. This is Sarah Lee, representing Massport.
Morning, Sarah. Next is MAPC.
Good morning, Eric Barassa with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council.
Good morning, Eric. Next, we have the MBTA Advisory Board. Just searching. Okay, I may come back. Next is the Advisory Council.
Leonard Diggins, Advisory Council here.
So Leonard. City of Boston, Seat 1.
Representing Mayor Michelle Wu and the City of Boston.
Jen, City of Boston, Seat 2.
Morning, this is Matt Moran, representing the City of Boston and Mayor Wu.
And Matt, at-large City of Everett.
Jay Monty, representing Mayor DiMaria and the City of Everett.
Morning, Jay. At-large City of Newton.
Jen Martin, representing the City of Newton and Mayor Ruth Ann Fuller.
Welcome, Jen. At-large Town of Arlington, please.
This is John Alessi, representing Select Board Chair Diane Mahan and the Town of Arlington.
Morning. At-large Town of Brookline. Next is Intercore Committee, City of Somerville.
Good morning, Tom Bent, representing the City of Somerville, Mayor Katiana Ballantyne, and the Intercore.
Good morning, Tom. Minuteman Advisory Group on Interlocal Coordination, Town of Acton.
Good morning, Kristen Guichard, representing the Magic Subregion for Select Board Chair Member Fran Arsenal.
Morning, Kristen. Metro West Collaborative City of Framingham.
Dennis Giambetti, representing Metro West Region and Mayor Charles Framingham.
Hello, Dennis. North Shore Task Force, City of Beverly. North Suburban Planning Council, Town of Burlington.
Good morning. This is John Strauss representing the Town of Burlington, Mike Speo, Chairperson, and the North Suburban Planning Council.
Morning, John. South Shore Coalition, Town of Hull.
Morning, Chris Diorio representing Hull Select Board Chair Erwin Nessoff for the South Shore Coalition.
Good morning. Southwest Advisory Planning Committee, Town of Brentham. Next, Three Rivers Interlocal Council, Town of Norwood.
Good morning, Tom O'Rourke from the town of Norwood, representing the Trick subregion.
Good morning. We have the Federal Highway Administration.
Good morning, Anthony Jones for the Federal Highway Administration.
Good morning. Federal Transit Administration. Just turning back up, is there anyone on amongst the board members that I have not called on the roll? With that, that calls the roll. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, David. And I should note for the record that someone has notified us that they will be using the AI note taker for this meeting. So if you have any objection to that, please let us know. Next item is the chair's report. I don't have one at this time, so we'll go directly to take it.
Thanks, David, and hi, everyone. If you could go to the next slide, please. So for today, I have, well, one announcement really, and then an important engagement update, and then I'll briefly review a couple of the key items on today's agenda and highlight the date for the next meeting. Next slide, please. So in terms of announcements, I wanted to raise the topic of an upcoming executive session. For those of you who were not at the conversation at the last MPO meeting, on May 15th, MEPC, which is the fiduciary to the MPO staff, shared with this board that they will not be signing contracts containing new terms and conditions on behalf of the MPO or their staff. That's related to the Commonwealth's participation in a lawsuit, which is against the revised terms and conditions in FHWA or USDOT contracts. So this has some immediate implications that we discussed at the last meeting for 2 MPO discretionary grants, and also potential implications for future funding sources. So in response to that announcement, board members asked a few questions, and it was proposed to further discuss in an executive session, which we confirmed is possible when the discussion is in respect to litigation, if an open meeting could have a detrimental effect on the position of the public body, and the chair so declares. So we are tentatively planning to hold the requested executive session at the end of the next MPO meeting on June 26th. We will, however, send out information in advance to confirm that date and that plan. And we will also, as required, include the executive session on the agenda. So keep an eye out for that information. But I wanted you all to be ready and planning for that. It means only board members and limited staff can attend, and the conversation will be kept confidential while the litigation's ongoing. The next slide, please. Next, I have an engagement about the Community Advisory Council. Next slide, please. So excellent news. We've received about 50 applications so far for the new Community Advisory Council, and we're seeing interest from a broad range of stakeholders that includes municipal, community-based organizations, professional associations, general public throughout the region. We aren't seeing as many applicants proportionately from the southern and southwestern parts of our region. So we'd like to encourage you all to share the application with any stakeholders who might represent those southern and southwestern communities, particularly in the South Shore Coalition, SSC, TREC, Three Rivers, and a local council, and SWAP, the Southwest Planning Committee subregions. Please, if you have questions, reach out. In the meantime, we are beginning the process of selecting members over the next couple of weeks, and we're on track to form the new group at the end of June and hold the first meetings in July. And those meetings will be focused on onboarding, informational sessions, the long-range plan, and otherwise just bringing new members up to speed on the MPO's work and the Advisory Council's role. And we'll expect to hold elections for the new chair and vice chair of this Community Advisory Council in August, with a new representative joining the MPO board in September. So as I mentioned, if you have any questions, please reach out. Specifically, please reach out to the Public Engagement Program Manager, Stella Jordan, sjordan@ctps.org. And with that, we can go to the next slide. Thanks. So for today's agenda, next slide. Yeah. So other than the usual business, we have 3 key items for today. So first, the release for public comment, if you are ready for that, for the FFY26 UPWP. This is following the review and recommendation from the UPWP committee last Thursday. And what Olivia will do is provide an overview of the UPWP and ask you all to vote to release it for public comment. I'll also do a bit of context setting at the beginning of that presentation about elements of the UPWP and the TIP that might be a bit unique this year to set that stage for when Olivia and then Ethan present. That brings us to the next item. Ethan LaPointe will present on the federal fiscal year 26 to 30 TIP. This will be after the public comment period. Ethan will summarize those comments that we received and any changes to the draft TIP that have been made or proposed since April 16th. And we will ask this board to consider endorsing that federal fiscal year 26 to 30 TIP. And then lastly on the agenda for today, we're hoping for a really substantive conversation with you all around the Vision Zero. Ali Clayman will be giving an update. As you know, we are on an expedited timeline for the federal grant funds. Sorry, we're on an expedited timeline because the federal grant funds for this grant, which is to develop the region's Vision Zero action plan. Those grant funds are expiring on June 30th. And per the earlier comments, not being able to sign an extension with the contested terms and conditions language. So at this stage, what we're looking to do in these last 2 meetings of June is today we'll provide project updates. We'll talk about some of the engagement work and safety analysis work, but then we'll focus most of our time today to ask you for your feedback on the policy and process research and draft recommendations. So we'd really like your input on that, and we will be looking to get an initial draft plan to this board at the end of the month. And then, as I've mentioned before, we're continuing to strategize about how we'll continue this Vision Zero work after the expiration of the federal grant contract. And since we're not able to also access the second SS4A grant award that the MPO was awarded. Next slide, please. So our next meeting will be on June 26th. We will plan to have a number of items on that agenda, including, as I mentioned, the Vision Zero action plan. So please, I hope you all are able to attend on that date as well. That's it, Mr. Chair. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Tegan. Any questions for Tegan? Lynn Diggins.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this kind of relates to the executive session. We are subject to OML, open meeting law, and so I can imagine that there might be groups of members that would like to have discussions outside of formal meetings. What is the quorum that we need to make sure that we are under so that we don't violate OML? The quorum number?
Do you want me to take that, David, or did you want to respond? Oh, David might be frozen.
I'm so sorry. Len, were you asking in terms of the MPO board meeting itself?
Yeah, because I think the deal is that you need to make sure that not more than a quorum, or less than a quorum, meets in order to not violate any open meeting law.
So sorry, I can respond to that, Dave. I'm so sorry. I was actually triggering for Dave Muller, the chair, to just see if he wanted to delegate it to it, but it looks like he's frozen. So if you could actually check with the chair in the meantime, and I'll start to answer the question. Thank you, Dave. So sorry, I know Dave can answer this as well, but the way that the executive session works is we are allowed to have a confidential conversation with board members as long as we vote at the end, the chair enables it, and then we vote at the end, towards the end of the next meeting, to move into executive session and then end the board meeting at the end of that executive session. So it just requires a quorum of the board. It actually requires a quorum of the board to have the executive session. So this is part of the open meeting law around how to hold executive sessions. So it does need to be a majority of the board. Was that your question, or was it about?
No. Actually, it was more like if a bunch of us want to have discussion on this or any topic, let's just make sure that we don't violate open meeting law. What is the quorum? I could probably look and figure it out, but I figured it'd be just better if I got the number from you and everyone got the number from you, so that if groups of us decided to have conversations, we would be sure to avoid violating that threshold.
Right. I believe it's 3 or more, but we can confirm with you.
Oh, it's that low.
Believe so.
Oh, okay. Because that's a quorum for, oh, I'm all confused now. Okay, well, I'll talk with you later. I don't want to
Let
take
us
up too
double
much time.
check it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm all confused now. All right, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Let us
so,
double check it and we'll get back to you. We had
okay,
kind of a technical difficulty in the middle of this. I apologize.
yeah, sure.
Are
Okay.
you stepping into chair? Is that why your mic is off?
Yeah, I think David just texted, and I think it might be having some internet access issues. So I can step into chair until he returns. Are there any other questions from members? Okay, not seeing anyone. I
I
could
think
ask
John Strauss has his hand up.
John Strauss in Burlington.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Thanks, Len. Just from the experience that I have at Burlington town meetings, you have to be careful with executive sessions. They're usually reserved for financial matters like salary, job descriptions, and so forth. If you just have a bunch of people getting together and looking to, get under a certain limit or just talk about different stuff, that is a violation of the open meeting law. So just so if you're going to plan to do different things, you have to just check like Len's going to do. Check the book and make sure everything is on the up and up. Thanks.
Eric, do you want me to respond to that?
Yeah, go ahead. Tegan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, John, for that. We've definitely done our due diligence. We've consulted with our general counsel, and due to the connection with the litigation, that's the justification for the OML and for the executive session, and that's embedded in the language around the open meeting law. So that's why it took us from last meeting to this meeting to do our due diligence, then announce it.
Right, that's what I meant. But what Len was sort of suggesting we kind of get together under a quorum, and different people, that's not allowed. But anyway, good.
Thanks for that.
Thank you, John. Jen Rowe.
Thank you. Just a clarifying question. I'm sorry if I missed this. Should we expect that the executive session would be in person or would it be conducted virtually?
The plan is virtually versus trying to pivot and holding the meeting in person. So the plan is virtual.
I think David's back, so I'll pass the chair back to him.
Thanks, Eric. Any other questions for Tegan? Seeing none. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Are there any? Being cares.
Good morning, everybody. Hello, Mr. Chair and the rest of the board. I understand that one of the items today on the agenda is to talk about the fiscal year 2026 to 30 TIP projects. And as folks may remember, the City of Chelsea's Park and Pearl Street project had been functionally removed from the TIP during a decision made by the board. I had done some lobbying for that at one of the previous meetings, and I'm looking forward to hopefully an affirmative vote to bring that project back into the TIP and specifically into hopefully fiscal year 2030. As a reminder, this is a major intersection within the City of Chelsea, centered right in our downtown Broadway district. We've got a major redevelopment occurring just adjacent to the site. We've also just applied for some funding for some really substantial utility work to prepare the site for these surface improvements. And in general, this is a major crash cluster area. It represents a major safety corridor. It's a safe route to school. And there are many things that make this an excellent project. And so I'm hoping for an affirmative vote today to bring it back onto the TIP. And I really appreciate everybody's hard work that has collaborated over the last several months on this. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Cares. Bill Degnan.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Bill Degnan from the City of Cambridge. I too want to speak to the upcoming vote on the TIP. The City of Cambridge appreciates the board's inclusion of $2 million for the design of the Fitchburg Crossing bicycle pedestrian bridge in FY26, as well as money for the Blue Bikes program. The bicycle pedestrian bridge of the Fitchburg Crossing is a very important project, both to the city as well as regionally in terms of connecting regional off-road paths. The inclusion of the $2 million in FY26 has given the city enough confidence that we're moving ahead with the procurement process for bringing on a design firm in case the grant funding for the program is not available to us when we go to try to secure that. And so we do appreciate the board's inclusion of that project. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Justin Kerwitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Justin Kerwitz here with Ty and Bond, representing the city of Lynn. Just wanted to speak on two projects similar to the prior two gentlemen, discussing the fiscal year 2026 to 2030 tip. The two projects being Essex Street, the rehabilitation of Essex Street in Lynn, and the rehabilitation of Western Ave in Lynn. Two major projects that were originally scheduled on Essex Street for a 2026 tip that got pushed out to 2028 in the draft tip, and then Western Ave that was scheduled for 2028 and now is pushed to 2029. Here just to speak on their behalf, happy to answer any questions, but these two priority corridors are pushing forward with Essex Street just submitting the 25% and Western Ave submitting the 25% in coming up in August. So happy to answer any questions as we get into that and any of the determinations with tip funding, but here on behalf of the city of Lynn.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments at this time? Seeing none, next item on the agenda is committee chairs reports. Are there any? Chris Clem.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. Hope you all can hear me okay. I'm having some internet issues myself. I want to let everybody know that the UPWP committee met last Thursday on May 29th, and the highlight of that meeting was a presentation from MPO staff on the full draft FFY 2026 Unified Planning Work Program. Committee members shared some initial comments and thoughts on the draft in a discussion with staff, and ultimately voted in favor to recommend the draft document be brought before the full MPO today for a vote for its release for public comment. And Olivia will have a lot more to say about that during the agenda item later in the meeting. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Chris? Seeing none, Jen Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The TIP Process Engagement and Readiness Committee met on May 15th. And we'll meet again in a week from now at 1 p.m. Via Zoom. At that May 15th meeting, we first reviewed a small number of minor changes staff were anticipating between the draft tip and the final document we'll see before us today. We then kicked off a debrief of this year's tip development process. With that, we shared a survey that will remain open through the end of this week, and that MPO staff are going to put in the chat. We encourage all MPO board members to participate, and the responses there will kind of guide our continuation of the debrief at the upcoming meeting. And then the final item was that Adriana shared some great research on how long it's taken projects to advance through the MassDOT process. And the committee discussed how this research could inform new expectations around project readiness to enter the TIP and then to stay in the initially programmed federal fiscal year. So this coming week, we'll continue the TIP development debrief informed by the survey results. We'll also review a draft set of readiness expectations and a draft requirement for project rescoring. As always, feel free to reach out to me at any time with questions, and I look forward to seeing many of you next week.
Thank you. Any questions for Jen? Seeing none, Jay Monty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a reminder, we have a congestion management committee next Thursday, June 12th. It'll be at 9:30 a.m. The main topic of discussion is going to be roadway pricing, which we've been working on for quite some time now. And for those members, you should have gotten an email with a link to a survey. So if you have a chance to fill that out before next Thursday, that would be most appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Any questions for Jay? Seeing none, next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of April 17th. Can I get a motion in a second to approve the minutes, and please state your name for the record when making the motion? Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, I'll make a motion to approve the April 17th meeting minutes.
Thank you. Tom Bent.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any comments, changes, questions, or suggestions? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
Absolutely. David Muller,
Yes.
John Bouchard,
John Bouchard, yes.
John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Sandy Johnston,
Sandy Johnston, yes.
Tyler Tarasi,
Tyler Tarasi, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassi, yes.
Hannah Switlikowski,
Hannah Swillikowski, yes.
Glenn Diggins,
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Jen Rowe, yes.
Matt Moran,
Matt Moran, yes.
Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
Jen Martin,
Jen Martin, yes.
John Alessi,
John Alessi, yes.
Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Kristen Guichard,
Kristen Guichard, yes.
Dennis Giambetti,
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Darlene Wynn,
Darlene Wynn, yes.
John Strauss,
John Strauss, yes.
Christy Ario,
Christy Orio, yes.
and Tom O'Rourke.
Tom O'Rourke, yes.
Thank you. And that motion carries, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the FY 2026 Unified Planning Work Program for a 21-day public comment period. Olivia?
Thank you. Good morning. And I'm actually gonna hand it off to Tegan first to provide a little introduction. Thank you. If we go to the next slide, please.
That's okay, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I'd also just like to take the liberty to suggest the board members check my chat in response to the questions during the ED report. You'll follow up with accurate information. So my apologies for creating confusion there. But for this topic, I'm here at this beginning of Olivia's presentation to set some stage for both this conversation about releasing the MPO's federal fiscal year 2026 UPWP for public comment, as well as do some stage setting for the upcoming presentation after this about endorsing the federal fiscal year 26 to 30 TIP. So to set that stage, I'd like to say that as a federally funded organization and alongside MPOs across the country, we've been navigating how to adapt to changes in federal priorities while still fulfilling our mandates as MPOs, to including, very importantly, to pursue the vision that this MPO board has established for transportation in the Boston region. So you all, as an MPO board, set the vision, goals, and objectives for this region when developing your long-range plan, which is focused on the future of transportation in the Boston region. The current plan, Destination 2050, was endorsed in 2023. And given that it defines the MPO's priorities and is still the federally approved Metropolitan Transportation Plan, or MTP, it will continue to define these priorities in certification documents like the UPWP and the TIP, as well as through other efforts that we engage in as MPO staff. And that includes looking at the impacts of our transportation investments on the well-being and quality of life of all people in our region, including those most affected by our transportation system, as well as evaluating and addressing the risk of severe weather and natural hazards that threaten the regional transportation system. So in the ongoing context of the evolving communication of federal priorities, we have and may further revise language in the UPWP and TIP as necessary to maintain consistency with our best understanding of what is currently required of MPOs to be able to receive federal funding. It does not reflect a significant shift in our approach to our work, but rather it's presented us with both a challenge and also at times an opportunity to modify and in some cases clarify the way that we describe our work in these documents. So I appreciate this board's understanding that we're all working together to navigate this rapidly evolving situation while meeting the mandates, again, of the MPO. So for this particular presentation, I will pass it off back to Olivia Sakosha, who's our program manager for the UPWP. That's the UPWP, for those who are not yet aware, is the annual work plan for the Boston Region MPO, as well as for the MPO funding that is channeled to MEPC, which, as I also mentioned earlier, is also the fiduciary to the MPO staff. UPWPs are required for MPOs to produce to enable the expenditure of the FHWA and FTA planning funds in a region. And in essence, they reflect the MPO's vision and goals. And through those through establishing planning priorities and activities for the coming year that are consistent with those goals. And the document that you have seen posted includes descriptions of the planning work and deliverables, who will perform the work, the timeframes for completing the work, the cost of the work, and the sources of funds to carry out that work. With that, Olivia will take us through the discussion.
Thank you. Sorry, we're just are having some issues pulling some slides up. Lauren,
Technical difficulties abound today.
it's one of those days. Oh, awesome. Thanks so much, Lauren. Great. So good morning. My name is Olivia Scotia. I am the UPWP program manager. And like Tegan mentioned, I'll be presenting the draft fiscal year 2026 Unified Planning Work Program, which throughout my presentation, I will refer to as our annual work plan. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So first, I wanted to start by providing a brief overview of how this annual work plan was developed this year. The UPWP is developed under the guidance and support of the UPWP committee, which first met in February to have our kickoff development meeting. And shortly after that meeting, our idea solicitation period opened, where we asked MPO members and members of the public to provide feedback on the MPO's ongoing program work and to provide ideas for discrete or one-off studies that could potentially be included in our fiscal year 2026 work plan. After that idea intake period closed, MPO staff reviewed all of that input and put together a subset of recommended discrete study ideas based on how well the ideas aligned with the MPO's goals and their feasibility to be completed in one fiscal year. The UPWP committee met for the second time to discuss this subset of discrete study ideas and provide feedback on the proposals. MPO staff then worked to adjust some of the study ideas based on this feedback that we received. And at our third UPWP committee meeting, the committee then had the opportunity to provide feedback on the MPO's ongoing program work. And at this meeting, the committee expressed interest in speaking with 4 MPO program managers about their programs and the anticipated outcomes for the next fiscal year. In the last committee meeting in April, the committee then voted on the 3 discrete studies that will be funded in our work plan in the next fiscal year. So overall, the UPWP document enables MPO staff to execute the work that we've described in this work plan over the next fiscal year. So it really is an essential step for us to be able to do our work. So I just wanted to thank the UPWP committee for the time that they've put into helping develop this document for this cycle. So if we go on to the next slide, please. I'll discuss now some of the elements of this upcoming fiscal year 2026 UPWP. So the overall funding in this UPWP is $7.7 million, which comes from federal highway and federal transit planning funds. Of this 7.7 million, 6.3 million is allocated to the Boston Region MPO, and 1.4 million is allocated to the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. And if we go on to the next slide, please. I have created a visual for how that 7.7 million is broken down into the different work areas that we include in our work plan. So these federal planning funds support the various tasks that staff undertake to support the MPO and our 3C planning work. It funds our 2 technical assistance programs, the 3 new discrete studies, resource management tasks, and MAPC planning studies and technical work. And so as you can tell, this MPO support and 3C planning section of this chart is the largest. It represents the majority of our budget. So I wanted to highlight it a little bit more and explain what is included in this section. So if we go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So this slice of the chart includes the MPO's 13 ongoing programs, which we separate into two categories. The first category is core MPO. The programs categorized as core MPO functions include our 3 certification documents, which are the Long Range Transportation Plan, or the LRTP, the Transportation Improvement Program, or the TIP, and this program, the Unified Planning Work Program. This category also includes our Public Engagement Program, Performance-Based Planning and Programming, Community Transportation Access Program, and the Congestion Management Process. And the programs that support the 3C planning process include our Transportation Impact Mitigation Program, Freight Planning Program, Regional Model Enhancement Program, our Data Program, Active Transportation Planning Program, and the Multimodal Mobility Infrastructure Program. So in addition to these programs, this work category also encompasses our editorial and graphics work, as well as our transit working group support. So clearly it's a very large category, and I wanted to specifically call it out because it represents a variety of work that MPO staff do, and it represents where a lot of MPO resources and staff time is spent. So if we go on to the next slide, please. I wanted to bring us back to this overall funding chart to also highlight the discrete studies section, which is in the light gray color on this pie chart here. So like I mentioned earlier, during our idea solicitation period, we solicited input from the public, MPO board members, and the UPWP committee about our ongoing programs. And we also asked for ideas for discrete studies. So we reserve, as you can tell, we reserve a small portion of our annual budget for discrete studies. However, they are important since they allow the MPO to study relevant transportation topics that align with our agency's goals, but that don't fit neatly into one of our ongoing programs or other work initiatives. And discrete studies are designed to be complete in one fiscal year. And the UPWP committee voted on 3 discrete studies to fund in fiscal year 2026. And the titles of those studies are the Pedestrian Scale Lighting Guide for Communities, representing the experience of limited mobility individuals, and a roadway pricing stakeholder analysis. More information about these studies or about our planned program work for the next fiscal year for any of the programs that I just listed out, or any of the work areas listed here in this chart, can be found in the draft Unified Planning Work Program, which is linked on the MPO calendar today. And if we go to the next slide, today I will be requesting that the MPO board vote to release the UPWP for public comment. This will be a 21-day public comment period. It will begin tomorrow, June 6th, and end on June 27th. After that public comment period closes, the UPWP committee will meet again to review those comments and to vote to approve the final UPWP. And at the July 17th board meeting, the committee will request endorsement of the final UPWP from the MPO board. And one thing I just wanted to note, like Tegan mentioned earlier, we are continuing to receive guidance on how MPOs should describe our work in UPWPs. So there may be additional changes to language in the document that may happen during the public comment period. So I just wanted to note that. And with that, I'm happy to turn it back to the chair for discussion or questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Any questions from the members? Seeing none, can we get a motion in a second to release UPWP for a 21-day public review process? Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa with MAPC. I vote to release the UPWP for a public comment period.
Lynn Dickinson.
Leonard Diggins seconds. I just want to thank Annette Dempster and Lauren McGee for having a really good talk with me about the good concerns that I had and getting me into a good place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lynn. Motion has been made and seconded. Please call the roll.
Certainly. David Muller,
Yes.
John Bouchard,
John Bouchard, yes.
John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Sandy Johnston,
Sandy Johnson, yes. Thank you to Olivia and staff for an excellent presentation.
Thank you. Tyler Tarasi,
Tyler Tarasi, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassi, yes.
Hannah Switlikowski,
Hannah Swalikowski, yes.
Len Diggins,
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Jen Rue, yes.
Matt Moran,
Matt Moran, yes.
Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
Jen Martin,
Jen Martin, yes.
John Alessi,
John Alessi, yes.
Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Kristen Guichard,
Kristen Guichard, yes.
Dennis Giambetti,
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Darlene Nguyen,
Darlene Nguyen, yes.
John Strauss,
John Strauss, yes.
Chris Diorio,
Chris Diorio, yes.
and Tom O'Rourke.
Tom O'Rourke, yes.
This motion carries, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I believe the next item on the agenda is probably the tip. I can't see the agenda anymore, but I think it's the tip, so.
That is the next agenda item. Apologies. I think we're trying to get that back up. You just bear with us one moment.
Yep. There you go, Ethan, whenever you're ready.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everybody. My name's Ethan Lapointe. I'm the Transportation Improvement Program Manager for the Boston Region MPO. My presentation here today is to present the federal fiscal years 2026 to 2030 Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, for endorsement, now that it has concluded its 30-day public review period. If we can go on to the next slide, today's presentation is going to have 4 different parts. The first, reviewing public comments that MPO staff received during the 30-day review period, which was conducted between April 28th and May 28th. And we'll also summarize changes to projects and other requested adjustments to the TIP that have been indicated or taken place since the April 16th MPO meeting. And as a reminder, the draft federal fiscal years 26 to 30 TIP was voted out at that April 16th meeting. We'll also have an opportunity to discuss any of these proposed changes or alterations, and culminating in a vote to endorse the final federal fiscal years 2026 to 30 TIP. Now, on the next slide, and the one following that, we'll move into public comment and what staff received in this during the review period. So, we can go one more slide, please. During the 30-day review period, staff received 11 comments and letters and 1 petition with regard to the federal fiscal years 26 to 30 TIP. It is worth noting that this is substantially lower than what we've typically seen in recent public comment periods for example, the 2025 to 29 TIP. With that said, however, staff have been tabling at multiple public engagement events, including during the comment period, to help raise awareness and engagement with MPO projects and objectives. And at events that we've conducted over the past month, we've engaged more than 400 separate individuals on MPO projects and priorities. I'd also be remiss if I didn't note that a related document that also includes the projects and program contained within the TIP, MassDOT's Capital Investment Plan, was also hosted by MPO staff at a virtual meeting on May 29th as well. I'll also note that while the comment period for the draft federal fiscal years 26 to 30 TIP has concluded, staff are continuing to seek engagement opportunities across our region, and we would ask just for your help in identifying and sharing any events that may be in your communities that we could attend. For example, we've been eyeing open streets opportunities, local farmers markets, different street festivals, etc. We have some other events coming up in the near future, but we would love to hear from you on any further ideas you may have. Now, with that, on the next slide, I'm going to now move into some of the letters that we've received from different partner or stakeholder agencies with regard to the TIP, starting off with the Interstate 495 Metro West Partnership. Staff received a letter from the 495 Metro West Partnership expressing continued support for projects in Metro West communities and the desire to see improvements to project delivery and readiness. I'd note that this letter specifically cited projects in Acton, Bellingham, Framingham, Holliston, Littleton, Milford, Natick, Sudbury, and Wayland. There was also one project that extends across MPO boundaries and also has limits within the town of Harvard, although Harvard is not within the Boston Region MPO. The 495 partnership also expressed appreciation to MassDOT for the continued work that's taking place at the interchange of Interstate 90 at 495 in Hopkinton and Westboro, and emphasized priorities from the partnership to invest in improved connectivity for regional transit authorities, alongside it continuing to advance multiple projects that are listed in the TIP universe of projects. The partnership also noted some concern that there are several projects that are currently programmed in the active federal fiscal years 2025 to 29 TIP within the statewide highway program that are not funded in the federal fiscal years 2026 to 30 TIP statewide highway program. Though it is worth noting that staff are continuing to get additional detail on these projects, and many of these projects have actually been shifted out of federal aid towards non-federal aid using fair share amendment funding. This is to say that because they are no longer funded with federal aid, they may not need to be presented in the TIP going forward, but staff are continuing to work with MassDOT to identify those projects and gain additional detail on a case-by-case basis for each line item. On a related note, on the next slide, the town of Littleton, which was also reiterating support for some projects that were listed in the 495 Metro West Partnerships letters, submitted a letter requesting that the Route 119 over Beaver Brook project in Littleton return to the statewide highway program in the federal fiscal years 2026 to 30 TIP, as it is currently funded in the fiscal 25-29 TIP, but does not appear in this one. The letter also noted a local desire from the town to expand the project scope to address further flooding concerns in the Beaver Brook area. Some months ago, this board was also presented with a Resilience Improvement Program project list for endorsement by the MPO to be incorporated into a statewide program. This is one of the projects that was proposed for inclusion in that plan, with the town of Littleton also providing a very similar letter and comment for this project at that time. And staff are continuing to work with MassDOT and the town to discuss this, given this specific project is at fairly early design stages. The town has also requested that the project limits for the replacement of the Route 119 bridge over Interstate 495 be extended to install new sidewalks along Route 119 to connect to the redevelopment of the King Street Commons in the town of Littleton. On the next slide, I would also note that this is with regard to a petition that staff received on the reconstruction of Route 30 in Weston. As with prior tips that staff have received, staff continue to receive letters from Weston residents regarding the reconstruction of Route 30, and this year staff had received a petition with 187 signatures opposing the funding for the project, citing traffic counts, tree removals, and construction cost increases. Specifically, the letter requested consideration of alternative alignments for a shared use path, though based on discussions that staff have had with the town, their consultant, and the state, including the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority, the alternative that was indicated by those expressing opposition would not be a viable alternative project. It's also worth noting that there was some substantial discussion at this board during the endorsement of the federal fiscal years 25-29 TIP, presenting various letters of support from the town of Weston for this project, including a recent town meeting vote in May of last year to secure all required remaining design funding on the project, and staff have been continuing to coordinate with the town of Weston to make sure that all public perspectives on the project are heard as the project continues to develop. And on the next slide, we've also received a letter from the Belmont Citizens Forum advocating for the continued support of the Belmont Community Path and citing a series of circulars that the Citizens Forum has released over the recent years intended to raise local awareness around the path. So with that, that is the extent of the letters that staff received during the public review period for the 2630 TIP. On the next slide, we'll then get into the actual changes that are proposed to the TIP document. Specifically, staff have prepared a resource that is available on the MPO calendar for reference here. This is a change summary tracker that helps to indicate each line item change to any projects or text that has been applied to so far between the draft TIP and the final TIP being presented for MPO members' reference here today. This document has also had a prior version that was provided for the May 15th TIP Process Readiness and Engagement Committee meeting, though this is an updated version that includes further changes that have been made since May 15th, and I will discuss that later in this presentation. We can go on to the next slide. Moving into the specific project changes. First off, we have one specific change to one project in the program of projects for a resurfacing contract between Braintree and Weymouth along Route 3. MassDOT is requesting an update to the cost of this project to reflect a new cost estimate of $12.7 million based on a 75% design estimate that was submitted on May 14th, with the prior cost estimate, which is currently reflected in the draft fiscal 2630 TIP, at $10.28 million. Given the project is scheduled to advertise in Q1 of federal fiscal year 2026, addressing this change via a TIP amendment after the 2630 TIP would likely take effect October 1st would likely delay the resurfacing work for this contract, so staff are requesting that this cost change be incorporated into the final endorsement. It is worth noting this is the only change to the program of projects for projects already in the 2630 TIP that would be presented here today, at least that are being requested. On the next slide, we'd also note this was an item that was presented to the TIP committee on May 15th, but the project in question here is the Belmont Community Path Phase 1. As some may recall from some meetings that took place on March 20th, there's a project cost increase on the Belmont Community Path of 33.2% from $20.5 million to $27.3 million. And again, this was already captured within the draft TIP. However, beyond that $27.3 million, staff have also learned of a further cost increase of exactly $5,250,000 on the project to a $32.55 million cost figure. In consultation with the town and their consultant, the cost increase and also the project manager at MassDOT, the cost increase reflects contingency values applied on top of the project due to uncertainty on materials costs. And as a result, as we're continuing to gain clarity on this, or trying to clarify items on this project, there is no action proposed at this time. And as mentioned, this was also discussed and presented previously at the May 15th TIP Process Engagement Readiness Committee meeting. Any changes to this project may be discussed further in this summer or as part of development of the federal fiscal years 27 to 31 TIP this fall. On the next slide, we also wanted to note that for the rehabilitation of Western Avenue project in Lynn, MassDOT and the City of Lynn had a public information session for the public on this project on May 14th in advance of a 25% design submission that is planned for this summer. At this meeting, staff had learned that there was a new cost estimate for the project based on 3 different alternatives for the project, with the lowest cost alternative being $63.8 million and the higher cost alternative being $65.9 million. These are cost estimates that were based on an over-the-shoulder memo and coordination that was conducted between the city, their consultant, and MassDOT, dated September 6th, 2024. It's worth noting that as part of TIP development this year, the city had cited a cost estimate of $47.2 million on the project as recently as April 3rd, when the final scenario vote took place for the draft 2630 TIP. It is worth noting that the difference in cost between that $47.2 million and the $64 to $66 million is not more on the construction cost side of things, which is at around a $37 million estimate, but on inflation contingencies and other utility contingencies around the project. Now, given the project is not yet at 25% design, that is likely why the elevated cost estimate of $66 million was not incorporated or represented during TIP development, but staff are continuing to gain additional clarification on this project in consultation with the city, their consultant, and MassDOT. As a result, staff are not proposing any action at this time. Moreover, given the current advanced construction schedule on the project, which is currently in the program of projects with $10 million in federal fiscal year 29, 15 in fiscal 2030, and a higher amount of about $21 to $22 million in fiscal 2031 as a projected balance, the cost increase on this project would need to be captured in federal fiscal year 2030. So again, staff are not proposing any action at this time for this specific project, but just looking to raise awareness and provide this information now that it's available. And on the next slide, I would also like to note, based on a prior comment that was made during the comment period, the draft federal fiscal years 26 to 30 TIP program that is being presented here today does not currently include the Park and Pearl Street project from the city of Chelsea. We would like to note that the city submitted a 25% design for this project on April 17th and are requesting the inclusion of the project for $12.12 million in federal fiscal year 2030. And again, it's worth noting, this is a project that was previously programmed in federal fiscal year 27 of the TIP, but was removed due to construction coordination conflicts or projected construction coordination difficulties in the project area. Should the board make a motion to include this project in the federal fiscal years 26-30 TIP, staff will capture those changes in the TIP document before the TIP would take effect on October 1st. And if we can move on to the next slide, I would now like to note that there are some additional proposed changes that staff may be making beyond the endorsement here today. If we can go on to the next slide specifically, that I will review briefly. So it's worth noting here that the majority of changes that are in the final 2026 to 30 TIP document are largely clerical in nature and are meant to ensure accuracy and consistency between document versions, at least what is in this TIP that is being presented here today. With that said, due to changes in federal priorities and the policy landscape that Tegan referenced earlier, certain phrases and language in the TIP document may receive further revisions following the endorsement of this document. And these changes would be consistent with the vision and goals of the MPO's long-range plan. This may entail removal of certain figures from the TIP document, such as historic TIP evaluation criteria that are no longer covered under the MPO's long-range plan, though these figures would still be available for public reference elsewhere, albeit as a separate file. If we can go on to the next slide. It's also worth noting here, and this is the main message, that the changes that would be made to the TIP document following this endorsement are not a deviation from the vision, goals, and objectives of the MPO's approved long-range plan, Destination 2050, which was approved in July of 2023. Given the broad support for the work that the MPO conducts from our diverse array of communities and local stakeholders, using this strategy ensures that we can continue to address key transportation issues, and that the work will continue to be a priority in the project activities that are undertaken by MPO staff, as already outlined in Olivia's prior presentation on the Unified Planning Work Program. Any additional changes that would take place to the TIP document's text are meant to ensure that the program of projects that is outlined within the TIP and that the TIP documents can continue to advance, and to make sure that the projects that deliver the region's vision and outcomes can also advance. So with that, if we can go on to the next slide. With regard to what these projects are and the program itself, the TIP Regional Target Program Summary currently includes 58 projects that amount to about $754.2 million, albeit with about $43.4 million of unprogrammed balance in there. And again, this is just the regional target summary. It does not include the approximately $9.5 billion of funding from our transit partners and also within the MassDOT statewide highway program and other activities as well. On the next slide, though, just still sticking with this $754 million, this chart also just breaks out how the different investment programs that are also outlined within our long-range plan, are balanced and allocated across the TIP, representing the most substantial investment within the regional target program, going to complete streets projects at 43.6%, nearly the next at 30% being major infrastructure investment, bicycle network and pedestrian connection projects at 10.5% approximately, an unprogrammed balance of 5.8%, transit funding at 4.3%, intersection improvements at 1.66%, and then community connections at 1.4%, bike share at 1.3%, and some new administrative line items which mostly reflect the project design set aside at 1.5%. If we can go on to the next slide, with all that in mind, staff are requesting that the board votes to endorse the federal fiscal years 2026 to 30 TIP, and staff are going to continue to engage the MPO board and the TIP Process Engagement and Readiness Committee as we continue to debrief the 2026 to 30 TIP development, as Jen mentioned earlier in the chair's report for the TIP committee, and also as we continue to begin work on the 2027 to 31 TIP. I also note that the next TIP process engagement and readiness committee meeting, where some of that debrief will take place, is scheduled for June 12th at 1 p.m. With that, I believe I'm happy to yield the floor to any questions.
Thank you, Ethan. Questions for Ethan? Seeing none. Eric, do you have a question?
I do. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I was
No
slow.
worries. ahead.
Ethan, so the projects that have these potential cost increases, you're proposing no action right now. We would tackle that over the course of the year. Is that correct? As more information and more definitive review of those cost estimates come in.
Yes, in particular, following, if, for example, the Western Avenue project, the 25% design submission plan for this summer.
Okay.
General.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ethan, could you go back to the slide about the Lynn project and the cost increases, the Western Ave?
Yeah, I think it might be 5 or 6 slides back, just for reference. There we go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just trying to understand sort of the sequencing here. I guess, is it correct that there was an awareness, like from the consultant city, MassDOT, about like the cost increase during TIP development, but we just weren't made aware of that at the time?
From the MPO staff perspective, staff became aware of the cost increase on May 14th, though it does appear that this other elevated estimate, which again is a combination of estimates for different alternatives that are still being evaluated, was from a memo from September 2024 before TIP development took place.
Thank you.
John Bouchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to answer to the questions. Ethan, great job as always, sharing information. And I wanted to clarify that we would never recommend to the MPO and staff to not address cost estimates. It's on any project. But whereas the Lynn project has not achieved a 25% design, there's multiple alternatives that are being considered. The project will, as the design matures and we go through public comment with a 25% design submission and then a design public hearing later this year, and it is on a future year TIP, then we would address it when we have a preferred alternative and a more defined schedule and some of the uncertainty on utility costs and material costs clarified. So again, we wouldn't recommend ignoring, we would recommend monitoring, and it does not require an action at this time. And that's the case for many future year projects. We keep an eye on them. We go through design reviews. We modify the scope of work. We include sidewalks where we didn't have sidewalks. We add traffic signals or roundabouts where we did. As the design matures, it kind of changes, and then we put together cost estimates at milestones so we can coordinate with MPO staff to make appropriate adjustments in that cost. So
thank you, John. Any other questions for Ethan? Lynn?
Well, maybe this will come up. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe this will come up a little bit later. I thought there was a decision that we needed to make, regarding like $12 million for a project. Maybe advance a couple of slides. I thought there was something that we needed to make a decision about. No?
Lynn,
Yes?
at the appropriate time, I will ask members if they have any motions on any projects, right? So if somebody wants to make a motion to add the Chelsea Pearl Street project, which I think is the one you're talking about, I will ask for motions then. Somebody could make a motion to add the cost for Lynn in. So at some point after we have our discussion, I'll ask if there's any motions for anybody. But thank you for not letting it pass. Yeah, we need to handle it.
Yeah, and I was a little bit confused, so thank you for correcting me on that. And then I just wanted to see this, so that I could think about it some more before you make that call or someone makes a motion. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Lynn, very much. Other comments? Seeing none. Oh, Tom Bennett.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just real quick, going back to the Lynn one. So and maybe I'm not getting this, but it
Put
seems
Lynn
like
back
there
up,
was some-
please, on the screen.
Oh,
So we can all
sorry.
look, so we can all look at it while Tom's talking about it.
It just seems like there was some known cost that wasn't presented to us, when we were discussing that. And that's just a little bit that, I'm concerned about that if there was some cost out there that they knew that this was going to get to a certain point, but we weren't given that information. I just want to make sure I'm understanding the timeline as to when cost estimates were available and what was presented to us.
John, you want to take this one?
I'll be happy to take this, David.
Thank you, John.
Tom, it was, again, the project is still in the preliminary, pre 25% design stage. There are alternatives that are being discussed as part of that development, and we have uncertainty with utility costs, material costs, et cetera. So it's not at a point that I would be able to make a recommendation to the MPO that this is the cost, and to my team, I would get a recommendation from them. This is how much we should be programming. It's still in the development stage. So it's not that we're holding anything back. It's part of, we don't have a design submission. The city hired their own designer for this project, and we're working with the city and the designer on the project scope. And it's just, it's like, hey, we're gonna do the roof on the house. It's like we have an estimate based on square footage. I don't know if I'm using this kind of shingle or metal shingle or what. So I couldn't recommend an endorsement because I don't have that information yet, because we haven't achieved a milestone that my team considers meeting all of our goals and stuff. So I wanted to clarify, we're not ignoring, I'm not recommending we ignore. It's still part of 25% development, so there's some uncertainty.
No, thanks, John. I appreciate that. Because that just goes into all the uncertainty we've had with a lot of these projects this year, and we're getting sent. I think MPO members are starting to get sensitive to these big increases on projects like we've seen today. So I just wanted to get a better clarification on that. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Does that answer everyone else's question? David, I defer to the chair.
Yeah, I think so, but Jen Rowe has her hand up, so maybe not. Jen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to note that in our TIP committee meetings, we are talking about additional new expectations for project proponents, including sort of a timeline for where we would proactively request information about cost increases. Because I think depending on exactly what the timing of that is, we might be able to catch something like this before. So I just wanted to kind of draw that connection for other MPO members who may not be in the TIP committee.
Thank you. I would also not like, I can't let this pass. It's also a reason why it's much easier for us all if we program projects at 25% as opposed to pre-25. Okay. Once 25s are in, John and his team will have a much better estimate of what the cost is. And those costs will change. Costs change on projects all the time. But a pre-25% cost estimate is just, back of the envelope best guess. Other questions or comments before we take any motions? Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to make a motion on a project? This is not the motion to release the tip for public review and comment. I want to see if there's any motions on projects. Jay Monty?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion to include the Chelsea Park and Pearl project in the FY 2030 tip. It's a good project, but I also, to your point just earlier, this is a project that's at 25%. And when there was a question about, whether or not we should program it, and we went to Chelsea and said, really, you should be at 25%. They stepped up to the plate. They got us to 25%. So I think, besides being a good project, this is a good message to send that folks who put in the effort, do the work, get the project 25%. We're gonna take them seriously. So again, motion to include them in the 2030 tip.
Thank you, Jay. Is there a second? Tom Bench, are you seconding?
Yes, I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
For discussion, is there any discussion? Ethan, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, please,
Go ahead,
please.
Lynn.
All right, well, just quickly, I don't have the normal like spreadsheet that we look at, for these. So just what's the impact of the bottom line when we include it?
Ethan, how much is available unprogrammed in 30, I guess. Let's do a minute into 2030, right, Jay? I think you probably said that and I missed it.
Yeah, I said 2030, Mr. Chair. Yeah.
Thank you. So how much is available in 2030 of that this $12.1 million would take out?
Yes, so after this $12.1 million, if it was programmed, there would still be 23.2 million in fiscal 2030.
Right.
So there's about 35 million in there.
Wait, thank you. That's it. Thanks.
All right, now I have a question, Ethan, because we took a motion and a vote and did not include at least one other project that was at 25% during TIP development at the meeting we had in person. This project was in the TIP and was in the 29 TIP, or the current TIP, 25 to 29 TIP. And is this the only project that if we didn't put it back in would have ended up being removed from that TIP?
Within the regional target program, yes, it was previously programmed in fiscal 27.
And was removed, and I think if we don't put it back in, would be the only project that we actually ended up removing. Is that true?
That is true.
Okay, because I think I want to support this, but I don't want to be inconsistent with my previous, hey, let's not put projects in, let's let the thing play out and we can do this during an amendment. But this project was in and actually is the only one that was taken out.
Yes. There was one that was moved to the statewide highway program on Broadway in Chelsea, but I believe that one is also in the statewide highway program still. So short answer is yes.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ethan? Seeing none, please call the roll on the motion to include the Chelsea Pearl Street project for $12.1 million in FY 2030.
I'll call the roll beginning with David Mueller.
Yes, for the stated reasons.
Next, John Bouchard.
John Bouchard, yes.
John Romano.
John Romano, yes.
Sandy Johnston.
Sandy Johnston, yes.
Tyler Tarasi.
Tyler Tarasi, yes.
Sarah Lee.
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, yes.
Hannah Switlikowski.
Hannah Switlikowski, yes.
Len Diggins.
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe.
Jen Rowe, yes.
Matt Moran.
Matt Moran, yes.
Jay Monty.
Jay Monty, yes.
Jen Martin.
Jen Martin, yes.
John Alessi.
John Alessi, yes.
Tom Bent.
Tom Bent, yes.
Kayla Sauer.
Kayla Sauer, yes.
Dennis Giambetti.
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Darlene Wynn.
Darlene Wynn, yes.
John Strauss.
John Strauss, yes.
Christy Orio.
Diorio, yes.
Tom O'Rourke.
Tom O'Rourke, yes.
Motion carries, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other project-specific motions? Seeing none, can I get a motion and a second to endorse the TIP as amended today? Please state your name for the record when making the motion. Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa with MAPC. I'll make a motion to endorse the TIP as amended today.
Thank you. Tom Bent.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Please call the roll.
Finally, David Mueller.
Yes.
John Bouchard.
John Bouchard, yes.
John Romano.
John Romano, yes.
Sandy Johnston.
Sandy Johnston, yes.
Tyler Tarasi.
Tyler Tarasi, yes.
Sarah Lee.
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, yes.
Hannah Switlikowski. I will return. Len Diggins.
Stevens, yes.
Sorry, did you say Hannah Swilikowski?
Oh, yes, please.
Oh,
The vote?
so sorry. Yes.
Not a problem, thank you. And next is Jen Rowe,
Jen Rowe, yes.
Matt Moran,
Matt Moran, yes.
Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
Jen Martin,
Jen Martin, yes.
John Leslie,
John Alessi, yes.
Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Kayla Sauer,
Kayla Sauer, yes.
Dennis Giambetti,
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Darlene Nguyen,
Darlene Nguyen, yes.
John Strauss,
John Strauss, yes.
Christy Orio,
Christie Ario, yes.
Tom O'Rourke.
Tom O'Rourke, yes.
Motion carries, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a discussion of the Vision Zero update. Ally Kleiman.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ally Kleiman, and I'm the Vision Zero project manager for the MPO. Next slide. And you can go to the next slide. So there are three main things I want to cover today. A few project updates on engagement and some of the safety analysis work we've been working on. A deeper dive into the policy and process research and draft recommendations that are part of our work on Vision Zero and the action plan. And then we'll talk about next steps and what is happening with the action plan after this meeting. Next slide. So just a quick reminder of our overall schedule and where we are right now. In April through June, we've been focused on finalizing existing conditions and data analysis. We've been doing a lot of engagement, including most recently focus groups, interviews with state partners, and municipal roundtables. Right now, we're in the recommended policies, strategies, and projects part of plan development. And later this month, we'll come back to the board to discuss the draft plan and with the recommended action of voting it out for public review. Next slide. So I want to give a brief update on some of our recent engagement work that's taken place since we last met with the board. Next slide. In April, we held 3 focus groups, one with people with disabilities, one to hear about challenges specific to older adults, and one with business community representatives. There's a lot on this slide, but I'll just touch on some of the key feedback from each group. So for people with disabilities, we heard about challenges related to sidewalk width and maintenance, and a desire for solutions to address distracted driving and have more assistance navigating the T. For older adults, we heard similar challenges to navigating sidewalks, sometimes due to uneven brick sidewalks. And we heard about challenges traveling between cities or getting from an outlying municipality into the inner core and Boston for doctor appointments due to a combination of not knowing where to park, more modern vehicles feeling uncomfortable to drive due to new technology, and a lack of accessible transit. And we heard ideas for solutions like more elder transportation options and more travel training. And from the business community, we heard challenges related to a lack of communication between municipal planners and business owners. And we heard that something that could help is earlier and more frequent involvement in transportation projects, and also doing this in a way that helps connect street safety changes to the economic impact on businesses. Next slide. And in early May, we held 2 virtual municipal roundtables, one with local law enforcement and one with planning, engineering, and DPW staff. A couple of the key takeaways from the law enforcement roundtable were that speeding is the most common cause of crashes they see, and funding and staff levels are some of the biggest challenges they face in their work to improve roadway safety. Our conversation with planning, engineering, and DPW staff pointed to the importance of interdepartmental and public buy-in and support for street changes, and the desire to have more peer exchanges to share solutions between municipalities. A couple more recent engagement events that just happened last weekend and didn't make it into the slides are the MPO engagement and multimodal planning staff attended 2 events this past weekend focused on bicycle infrastructure and safety. One was the Mattapan Food and Fitness Youth Bike Summit, where Kyle, Stella, and Gia organized and led a complete streets and safety-focused design charrette with the young people at the event. And the other was Bike to the Seas annual bike event, where Stella participated in the bike ride and was able to talk to over 150 participants about the MPO's Regional Vision Zero work and ways to get involved. Next slide. So transitioning to the analysis updates, I wanted to touch on the next step we took with the high injury network. Next slide. So at the April 15th meeting, I talked about how we developed the high injury network. This is the top 5% of high crash roads at the regional, sub-regional, and municipal levels. Next slide. And then we took that data and combined it with vehicle and vulnerable road user volumes, underserved communities, and priority destinations like transit stops, schools, and hospitals, and developed a prioritized high injury network. So you can see an overview of that map here, and this will help us further prioritize corridors throughout the region and coordinate with municipalities about their priorities for the location of future safety projects. Next slide. No, sorry. So another key part of the analysis is looking at risk. And this is where this is the other technical report that was posted for your review. Next slide. So whereas the high injury network allows us to focus on where crashes have happened, the systemic or risk analysis can be a more proactive approach that focuses in on high risk areas. And the risk analysis that we did focused mainly on the 6 key emphasis areas that emerged as the top contributing factors to fatal and serious injury crashes in the region from the existing conditions data analysis. So I showed this table at the April 17th meeting to show how we focused in on these emphasis areas, either because the percent of fatal and serious injury crashes in the emphasis area is higher in the region compared to the Commonwealth as a whole, or because the percent change in fatal and serious injury crashes in that emphasis area from 2018 to 2022 was higher in the region compared to the Commonwealth. Next slide. So some of the key findings from the systemic analysis are that the majority, over 3/4 of the top risk locations for vulnerable road user crashes are on roads under municipal jurisdiction. Some North Shore municipalities have higher risk for older driver crashes compared to the rest of the region. And some of the key risk factors for speeding-related crashes are narrow medians, wide travel lanes, and low traffic volumes. Next slide. And the main outcome of the systemic analysis is a map to be able to understand the location of high-risk intersections and segments, and to be able to align specific risk types with best practice interventions, and where possible, lower cost interventions that can be deployed across a number of similar types of high-risk sites. Next slide. So those were some quick overviews of the engagement and safety analysis work that's gone on over the past month or so. Now I want to get into more detail on the policy and process side of the Vision Zero work. Next slide. So just a reminder of how this policy work fits into the overall Vision Zero planning effort. This graphic shows the main elements of Vision Zero planning. And you can see that one of the 4 outcomes of the planning process is policy and process changes. Next slide. So I have several slides to go through to summarize the policy and process report that was posted for your review. These are draft recommendations at this point, And as Tegan said, today we'd really like to get your input on what's been developed so far. So as I talk through these slides, these are some questions that you can be thinking about that we will come back to at the end. But are there any significant gaps in policy coverage that you didn't see addressed in the memo? Do you have any thoughts on the time frame for implementation of the policy or process recommendations that are called out? What do you see as some of the greatest challenges or opportunities to implementing these changes? And how can we best measure the effectiveness of these policy changes once implemented? Next slide. I wanted to provide a brief overview of the methodology that we did for this work. So we did a literature review of best practices from other Vision Zero plans and communities. We used the existing conditions analysis to focus specifically on policies that have the highest potential to address the top identified causes of crashes in the region. And we got input from stakeholders, including municipal staff, state partners, advocates, and the public about priority policies and the highest impact policy or process changes for roadway safety. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. So the next several slides go through all the draft changes, and we're going to talk through them in the same order as they're listed in the handout that was posted for today's meeting. So in each table, you'll see the lead organization. This is the entity mainly responsible for implementing the recommended policy or process change. Each table includes either all policy changes or all process changes. And these are defined as a policy, something that mandates, identifies, or prohibits specific behaviors, functions, or actions for an institution, and a process as an operational procedure providing instructions on how to implement a policy or meet a requirement. And then we're going to talk through the draft recommendations also by time period for implementation. So either short, 1 to 2 years, medium, 3 to 5 years, or long, more than 5 years. Next slide. So first we'll talk through the short-term process recommendations. There are 3 here that the MPO is the lead organization for, 1 where municipalities are the lead, and 2 short-term process changes that MassDOT would lead. The process changes or improvements that the MPO could lead are revising the selection evaluation criteria for proposed projects for the TIP, expanding education and outreach about vulnerable road user safety and rights on Massachusetts roads, and expanding guidance for municipalities to perform speed data collection. The short-term process change that municipalities would be the lead on is to become an alliance partner with the Massachusetts Safe Routes to School program. And the 2 short-term process changes that MassDOT would be the lead on are to improve outreach and education about the dangers of distracted driving and the hands-free law, and to perform research about establishing a requirement for speed limiter devices for repeat speeding offenders. Next slide. So next we'll talk about the short-term policy recommendations. Municipalities would all be the lead implementing organizations on these, and the policies include adopting a Vision Zero policy, developing a policy to deliver systemic safety signage, striping, and other safety treatments as part of recurring maintenance projects, adopting a municipal safe fleet vehicles policy, reducing speed limits to 25 miles per hour on non-state highways in thickly settled or business districts, adopting a separated bike lane policy and leveraging federal and state guidance to evaluate and design separated bike lanes, and evaluating and updating curb management policies and plans to reflect the needs and safety for all types of road users. Next slide. So moving on to the medium-term recommendations, there are 2 medium-term process recommendations. Municipalities would be the lead organization for both of these. The first is installing no turn on red signs at identified high-risk intersections, and the second is implementing MassDOT's guidance on speed management and speed limit setting. Next slide. And there are 4 medium-term policy recommendations. Similar to the short-term policies, municipalities are the lead implementing organization for all of these. And the medium-term policy recommendations include establishing safety zones and school zones along municipal-owned roadways to lower speed limits to 20 miles per hour, adopting a complete streets policy and leveraging MassDOT funding opportunities to prioritize and make improvements for walking and biking infrastructure, establishing speed limits on non-motorized multimodal facilities with posted signage, and developing a policy that requires traffic control guidance and design to improve safety for vulnerable road users traveling through municipal project work zones. Next slide. There are a subset of medium-term policy recommendations that would need legislative change in order to be implemented. So this table summarizes those medium-term policy recommendations that need legislative action. These include permitting the use of automated red light enforcement and citations at signalized intersections, changing seatbelt usage enforcement to a primary offense for passengers, permitting the use of automated speed enforcement and citations, extending legal protections for vulnerable road users by building upon the 2022 Act to Reduce Traffic Fatalities, and permitting the use of automated bike and bus lane enforcement for moving violations. Next slide. And finally, there's one draft policy recommendation that falls in the long-term time frame, so greater than 5 years. This policy is to update drivers' education and licensing requirements to include opportunities for continued education for older drivers. And the lead organization is MassDOT and the RMV. So changing licensing requirements would also require legislative change, but I left it in this category for now because there's also an element of this recommendation that could be sharing educational materials with older adults without actually changing licensing requirements. Next slide. So overall, there are several key takeaways when we consider all of the potential process and policy change recommendations. These include the role of interagency coordination, as many policy and process changes will require coordination between state, regional, and municipal entities. The importance of continued data collection and analysis as we move forward with implementation and reporting of the action plan and any policy or process changes. The need for continued stakeholder engagement for buy-in and education of process or policy changes, the role of new technologies in increasing roadway safety, such as automated enforcement and intelligent speed assist, and the need for legislative change before some of these policies could be implemented at the local level. Next slide. So that was a lot of information and a quick summary of the draft recommendations that came out of the policy and process work that we've been doing as part of this Vision Zero plan. And now we were hoping to get your feedback on many of these things. So I will hand it back to the chair.
Thank you, Allie. Questions, comments, discussion from MPO members? Lynn Diggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Allie, I could spend an hour talking with you about this, and
go ahead.
And perhaps I will at some other time, Allie, and maybe, if to be efficient with your time, if someone else wants to join me, we can have another little meeting after this meeting. I'll probably send you an email or something with some of my thoughts, but I'll just ask one question now, and that is, I saw the emphasis on older drivers, and I agree with that. But when looking at the state's take on this, they also had an emphasis on young drivers, youth drivers, and I noticed that's not included here. The reason for that?
I think mainly that's because young drivers didn't come up as one of the emphasis areas that rise to the top for the region. So it could be an emphasis area. And this is where the risk mapping comes in. It can be a risk in some municipalities, but for the policy research and work, we focused in on the top emphasis areas, policies to address the top emphasis areas that rose to the top for the entire region.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Eric, Barassa?
Yeah, thank you, Ally. This is really great. I appreciate the presentation. I think one of the biggest challenges for municipalities will just be like getting this in front of them and really engaging with them and making the case for it. And I think in many ways we need to come up with what's our plan after we adopt this to sort of like, how are we gonna get some of these recommendations in front of individual municipalities. I think, presenting at the subregions is one level, but actually trying to get it on agenda. And different municipalities have different ways of adopting these types of policies. And so understanding what is the decision-making process and how to kind of prioritize. But I think kind of nesting these recommendations within the larger plan and the data and the outreach, I think is very compelling. But I really see that as sort of like the implementation arm of this policy process. But very interested in coordinating on how we can do that. I think it will take effort to kind of really make the case and get in front of folks and kind of get it on the agenda. Even Len knows as a select board member in Arlington, even for municipalities like Arlington that are fairly bike friendly, anytime you're proposing separate bike lanes, that now you're talking about like potentially taking parking spaces where there's like other layers of analysis that needs to go in. But this is really great work, and I think creates a really great framework that we can have additional discussion with our municipalities.
Thanks, Eric. Brad Rawson. I think you're unmuted, Brad, aren't you?
Can't hear him though. He is unmuted. We can't hear him.
Check. Sound check. Any luck?
No, we still can't hear you. I can sort of hear you very lightly, but I can't make out a word you're saying. Any other? Jen Rowe.
Jump in. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Like others, this is really fantastic work, and really appreciate the you moving it forward on a quick timeline. I think first wanted to just take the opportunity to thank the state legislature and MassDOT for taking Boston's safe fleet vehicle policy a step further with the Act to Reduce Traffic Fatalities. It was really cool seeing the recommendation for other municipalities to adopt similar policies, and we're really grateful that that applies to all large vehicles now kind of that are being procured by the state or contractors working with the state. In terms of like a kind of where it may be missing, was kind of surprised not to see kind of discussion of leading pedestrian intervals, leading cyclist intervals. That we found that a really critical signal phasing tool for our especially complex intersections in Boston. And I was just curious if that had come up at all in these conversations.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. I mean, we're simultaneously drafting like the specific actions that we're going to be proposing for the plan, and signal timing and leading pedestrian intervals are obviously best practice and you'll be seeing those in the draft list of actions when you see the draft action plan. I guess maybe part of that question goes to what Eric was saying. I think in some municipalities, maybe that will require sort of a policy change. So thinking about how certain recommendations actually get implemented, I think is the meat of all of this.
Didn't you have a follow-up?
Yeah, thank you. That makes sense. I will say that we do have in Boston a signal policy that includes leading pedestrian intervals, and happy to share that with others who may be interested. So yeah, thank you for that. And then there was one other thing that I just wanted to throw in there for consideration. I was thrilled to see the note or the recommendations around the red light cameras and speed enforcement cameras. I'd also would love to see a mention of access control enforcement in addition there, and did want to note for others that there is some, I believe, legislation currently at the State House on this matter. So maybe throw out for consideration that maybe if we can kind of get to consensus on some of this stuff, it could be useful for the MPO to sort of weigh in on an official capacity there. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Brad, you have your hand up still, so let's see if you can see if your thing's working.
Oh, I doubt it, Chair. I think I'm good with the written comment. Can you hear me?
I see. I could hear you better, but not all the way, Brad. All right. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Al. Oh, wait, comment.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank Ali for this. One thing, you mentioned early in the slides, outreach to businesses, and I think that's going to be a key thing because you really, with a lot of the changes that are out there, I'm hearing positives and negatives from businesses, but there is a feeling that their voice isn't being heard a lot. So I think, for a lot of this to be successful, you really do need, the business input and feel like that they're part of it. So I just, I was glad that you had something in there about that, and want to encourage that outreach. And again, going back to Eric's comments, I think it will, where I think where the work's going to be is at, at the municipalities and getting people on board with a lot of these recommendations. But thanks for putting this together. It was well done.
Thank you, Tom. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Ali. Very informative. Next item on the agenda is member items. Are there any? John Alessi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to give a brief update on the town of Arlington's Broadway corridor redesign project. This was a design project that is funded thanks to the MPO's project design pilot. I want to thank board members for voting to provide this funding to Arlington, and want to give an update that we have released our RFP. We have received 11 proposals for the project, and just wanted to kind of give that update that we're gonna be reviewing those proposals and hopefully selecting a consultant in the next month. And that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Megan?
Thank you. Sorry. What I was going to say is related to Vision Zero. Ali, did you, if I may ask, Mr. Chair, Ali, did you have something you wanted to add first? You're muted.
Sorry. I had one other slide just about next steps.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ali.
No, I forgot as well until we moved on. Yes, thank you. So yeah, in terms of next steps for the board, there's a couple upcoming things. One, you all should have received a calendar invite for the IRAP Safe System Workshop on June 24th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So we'll share more information about that in the coming week or so. And then, as has been mentioned, I'll be back on June 26th to present the draft action plan and a recommendation to release it for public review. In terms of action plan development for stakeholder engagement, we're continuing to meet with municipalities to discuss high injury network corridors and interventions. We're planning another IRAP safe system workshop for the Vision Zero Task Force. And also on June 26th, there will be a public forum, a virtual public forum for the draft action plan. For the safety analysis, we're working on municipal crash profiles that you'll be able to review. And then, as I mentioned, we'll be coming back with a refined list of actual strategies that we're proposing for the draft action plan. So thank you.
Thank you, Ally. Now, Tegan, I think you're going to piggyback on this anyway.
Thanks, I will actually. Thank you very much. In the spirit of how rapidly, this is evolving as well, I wanted to also brief the board on something that I would typically include in my executive director's report, but did not make it in earlier in the meeting. And that is that related to this Vision Zero work, we are planning to apply in response to the current NOFO that is now out in terms of the next round of SS Prairie grants. I mean, because we are so deeply involved in this work now, we feel it is worthwhile for us to continue to seek access to these funds, even given the current issues that I mentioned in the executive director's report related to contractual language. So we are planning moving forward with what would likely be closer to a $5.7+ million request, with a match would be added onto that. And we're seeking that through conversations with MassDOT. The reason why I'm bringing this up now is because it is due on June 24th, should be in advance of the next board meeting. But the types of things we would focus on in this particular iteration of the grant would be kind of additional, more innovative safety analysis, applying safety star rating corridors, looking at road safety specifically for children, and then also additional funding towards quick build demonstration projects. So that would be the focus. And again, we're rapidly developing it, but wanted to make sure this board was aware and had the option to ask questions if needed.
Thank you, Tegan. Any questions for Tegan about that? Seeing none, are there any other member items at this time? Can I get a motion and a second to adjourn? And please state your name for the record when making the motion. Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, MAPC. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Thanks, everyone, for a great meeting.
Jin Rowe.
I'll second that motion.
Are there any objections? Seeing no objections, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much. See you in 2 weeks. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.